In a world full of giants, the show must always go on. But when does the show go too far?
Police now treating the discovery as a double murder-suicide.
This is not a wrestling angle. This is real life.
I'm your host, Max Garvey, and welcome to No More Gimmicks, detailing real-life tragedies in the history of professional wrestling. The year is 1999. The animated TV series Family Guy debuts on Fox directly after Super Bowl 33. President Bill Clinton is acquitted by the United States Senate on both articles of impeachment. Steven Spielberg wins his second Oscar for Best Director at the 71st Academy Awards for the film Saving Private Ryan. Another occurrence would take place that spring that would shock America and give a behind-the-scenes look into a business known for its secrecy. On May 23rd, the WWE, then known as the World Wrestling Federation, was set to broadcast a pay-per-view event called Over the Edge, featuring a main event WWF Championship match between The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin. It took place in Kansas City, Missouri's Kemper Arena, now known as the Hy-Vee Arena. This event would become a tragic day in the history of professional wrestling, as the 16,472 fans in attendance, along with many of those on the WWF roster, were unaware they were about to witness one of their heroes fall to his death. Seasoned veteran Owen Hart of the famed Hart wrestling family and younger brother of five-time WWF champion Bret Hart was wrestling under a gimmick or character, the Blue Blazer. Hart, wrestling as the Blue Blazer, had been doing various stunts involving a grappling hook for tongue-in-cheek comedic segments at various WWF events. His job was to make a mockery of previous angles in wrestling history, involving many superhero-like wrestling gimmicks. Owen found himself on the card that night in Kansas City in an Intercontinental title match against the champion, The Godfather. He was preparing to make a theatrical ring entrance that involved a similar grappling hook that he had been using to perform other such stunts. He was to descend from the rafters of Kemper Arena to the center of the mat, a silly nod to the entrance of Sting, a wrestler for rival wrestling promotion WCW. As his music hit, Hart had his harness clipped to his back and gently lurches himself from the catwalk. During his descent, Owen became momentarily tangled and began spinning uncontrollably. He reached back and tried to steady himself as he got closer to the ring. Suddenly, the clip detached the rope, and Owen began free-falling from more than 70 feet in the air. Former WWF referee Michael Chioda recalls this. "I remember waiting for Owen to come down. Out of nowhere, I feel this heavy object hitting me on the shoulder and bouncing off the turnbuckle. I turned around, confused as hell. I looked down at the mat, and it was Owen. He wasn't moving." Hart landed chest first on the top ring rope and was catapulted backward onto the wrestling mat. One of his aortas had been severed from the impact. At 8:12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 33 minutes after his fall, Owen Hart was pronounced dead at the emergency room of Truman Medical Center in Kansas City. He was just 34 years old. An investigation following the incident revealed that the harness he wore for this theatrical entrance was only intended to support 35 pounds. Hart himself weighed 227 pounds.
Last night, during a pay-per-view WWF event in Kansas City, Owen Hart fell 5 stories to his death.
WWF Chairman Vince McMahon faced various wrongful death lawsuits and much scrutiny after that night. This was also just a few years after he had been nearly found guilty of anabolic steroid distribution before the Supreme Court, after initial indictment from a federal grand jury. Owen's widow, Dr. Martha Hart, would eventually settle out of court with the WWF for a multi-million-dollar sum. To his friends and fellow wrestlers, Owen Hart is remembered as a phenomenal prankster, a loving family man, and a wrestling legend cut short just of his prime. As a fan myself, I remember being 7 years old and hating Owen Hart because he was mostly a heel, or villain, during this time. All that meant is that he was doing his job right. Fans are supposed to hate the heels. Upon hindsight, I can't look back on my childhood wrestling fandom and not picture him being there. I guess that's the kind of guy he was. Someone who always made an impression. Thank you for listening to No More Gimmicks. Once again, I'm your host, Max Garvey. For more information, email me at jmgarvey@mail.com. And remember, nothing in this life is truly fake.